네, 이번에 저희가 만나는 기업은 앰플리튜드 맞죠?
네.
네, 이 기업에 대해서 이제 진행을 해보도록 하겠습니다.
Today, we're excited to be joined by Spenser Skates, CEO of Amplitude. Thank you for inviting us to your lovely office.
Yes, of course. Thank you for coming all the way to San Francisco.
Very nice city.
Is this your first time?
Two
Second
times.
time.
Yeah,
Second time. Okay, cool. Fantastic.
Yeah. 2년 전에는 빅테크들 많이 다녔었는데 이번에는 이제 앞으로 빅테크가 될 기업들 위주로 방문하고 있다. 말씀해 주세요.
So 2 years ago, he came to visit like the big tech companies like Google, and going forward, he wants to visit the next uprising.
Oh, fantastic.
big tech companies.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, first company.
Thank you for coming. How did you hear about Amplitude?
Actually, I was just browsing to look at the some of the startups or companies in
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, and one of those was Amplitude. It stood out. So,
Oh,
회사에 대한 소개를 해주시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
so could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us all about what Amplitude is?
of course. So,
Yeah.
제 이름은 Spenser입니다. So, my name is Spenser Skates, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Amplitude. I started the business with my two co-founders 13 years ago, back in 2012. We saw a big opportunity to reshape how people use data to build products. Since then, we've grown the company a tremendous amount. We're now the leading digital analytics company out there. And we're all about how do you create a great product experience using data. So what are the different things you can figure out about what your customers are doing and how they're using your products so that you make that a great experience. In today's economy, customers are choosing you based on convenience and what's the most convenient. And so it's super important to have a really great product experience.
우선 이 회사가 어떻게 설립됐는지 설립 배경을 좀 들어보고 싶거든요. 예, 그래서 회사를 어떻게 시작하게 됐는지 들어보고 싶습니다.
We're curious about the founding story behind Amplitude. Could you tell us what inspired you to build Amplitude?
Yeah, so before Amplitude, we had actually worked on another company called Sonolite, which was a voice recognition company that helped you send and receive text messages by talking to your phone. It was like a version of Siri, actually before Siri had started. And in building that, there were so many questions that we had around what the customer was doing. We wanted to know where they were getting stuck. We wanted to know how important the accuracy of the voice recognition. We wanted to know how long they stuck around for. We wanted to know how they were using it. And it was obvious to us that you should look at data to figure out the answers to all those questions. And so we ended up spending a lot of time building out our own analytics product. And then when it came time to shut down Sonolite, there were so many other companies that came to us and said, hey, we really want what you need for analytics. And so we ended up deciding to pivot and change into building analytics, and that was the start of Amplitude.
그럼 몇 살 때 만드신 거예요? 그러면?
So, how old were you when you founded Amplitude?
So that was June of 2012. Would have been 23 years old. So
23 years
23,
old.
yeah. Wow. A long time ago, yeah.
Are there a lot of young CEOs like you in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, there are a ton. One of the reasons we actually started a company was because of Y Combinator. Do you know Y Combinator? So it's
You can explain.
Yeah. It's an early stage startup program for companies that are just starting out. And one of the focuses they actually had at Y Combinator was on young founders. And so even if you had just graduated from school or didn't have any work experience, you could be able to start a company, and it, proved very, very right. And we were a great example. Both myself and my co-founder had worked for 1 year before starting a company. And so we really were just basically right out of school and didn't know anything about anything, but have learned how to found something.
So, do you have to apply for it, and is it like a competition?
Yeah. It's similar to a college application. You apply for it. They'll interview the top applicants, and then they'll select them to join the program. But they have 4 different, they call them batches a year, and there are hundreds of companies that join them every year. And it's not so much about, it's less that it's competitive. It's more that, they don't have a set number of spots. It's more that, do they think you your company and your founding team have potential. So yeah, and even if you don't know anything about startups, or if you don't have connections, as long as you are trying to figure out how to build a successful business and have curiosity around that, they will, they work with, your business doesn't have to be at any particular stage. There are people who apply with just an idea.
그 상장까지 좀 성장 스토리 좀 들어볼 수 있을까요?
Can we hear about your success story of the point where you publicly listed Amplitude?
Oh, there's a lot that went into that. The public listing is actually almost the easiest part. Let's see where to start. So maybe to go through what happened. So we started with, it was just the three of us as co-founders, and we were all engineers. I switched over full-time from engineering to sales because I was the worst programmer out of the three of us. My co-founder Curtis is twice as good as me, and then Jeffrey is twice as good as him. And so we launched the company in 2014. We started growing the business a ton. We raised an early seed round and started building out the team. And then it was just trying to keep up with the demand and the growth. And so there were tons and tons we just happened to hit the right market at the right time. And there were a lot of customers that actually were very interested in what we had to offer. One of the first personas was actually, there were a lot of former product managers from this company named Zynga that were used to getting very advanced analytics internally. And when they left and went on to start their own companies or be part of other companies, they didn't have anything that they could use. And so they ended up coming onto Amplitude. And what was crazy is we had no product, not much of a product, no brand, no existing customers, no real proof points, because their pain in not having this data was so deep, they were very willing to work with us. And so we grew the business from 0 to 1 million in the first year, then from 1 million to 4.5 million in the second year, then to 13 and to 31, and you kept growing and growing and growing. I had to switch then from being the chief salesperson to hiring and building the team. And so one of the biggest changes was actually going to hiring executives for the first time at Amplitude. And that was very different because your job is to hire people who are better than you at a particular skill. So a better salesperson than I am, or a better engineering leader, or a better someone who knows finance more than I do. And that was actually really hard because it was okay, hey, who am I to judge someone who has these skills? And one of our cultural values at Amplitude is humility. And so that took me some time to wrap my head around. But we built out that team, and then it was just about kind of keeping up the growth. We grew from 0 to 1 million in annual recurring revenue. So we started that in 2014. We got to 100 million in 2020. So it was about 6 years to do that trajectory. And then from there, we realized that people want a lot more than just analytics. People want, there's all sorts of other uses for the data. So they want to look at that data for how they're going to use it for experimentation. They want to use that data for targeting users. They want to view sessions from those users and the data they're collecting. They want to guide their users through the product or survey them. And so we realized we had to go from just a single product company to a multiple product company. And so we started the development. My co-founder Curtis actually led the development of our experiment product. And then from there, we started adding out a lot else. We added activation, we added session replay, we just added guidance surveys earlier this year, and now we're building out this whole platform of different ways to leverage the data that you have on the customer journey. Then that brought us to 2021, where we took the company public, which was a big moment for Amplitude. But surprisingly, actually, little changes from being a private company to a public company. A lot of people ask about it, but it's actually the same. You're still trying to build a great product and get that product into the hands of customers. And so it's the exact same thing. And yes, there's this feature where your equity gets traded in a public market, and anyone can become a buyer and owner, or anyone can buy it and therefore become an owner. But not much actually changed for me because I have to do an earnings call every quarter to update the world on our progress. But the still process of building a great product and getting that into the hands of customers is very much the same. Sorry, I know that was a lot there.
No, it's okay.
가장 이 회사가 빠르게 성장한 급속도로 성장한 기간이 언제였었는지.
When was the period that Amplitude grew the fastest?
We actually grew really fast in the early days of the business when there was just a huge amount of demand for analytics. Well, that's actually not true. We're actually growing faster. Every year we grow faster than we ever have than the year before. But at the start, when you're growing off a very small base and you triple, it's like a lot. Going from 1 million to 4.5 million, like that's a huge amount of growth. Or going from 4.5 to 13, it's also a really large amount of growth. Now we're still growing a lot, but the rate is slower. So we're growing 10, 20% a year right now, but that's off of a very much larger base. So we're about 330 million in terms of the total size of the business. And so now we're thinking about how do we go from 330 to $1 billion and accelerate the rate that we grow along the way.
지금 시가총액이 얼마 정도 되는 건지. 예.
So what's the current market value for Amplitude?
We're just over $1 billion.
오, 그러네요. 오, 좋네요. 그러면 지금 오늘날 주요 고객들이 여러분이 잘 모르실 것 같은데 주요 고객들이 어떤 기업이 있는지 좀 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
So who are some of your major customers today?
We have customers all across, so both in technology companies and non-technology companies. On the technology side, we have great customers like Atlassian, Intuit, DoorDash, HubSpot, that are all big users of Amplitude. And on the non-technology side, we have customers like Fox Broadcasting, NBC, Walmart, Ford, tons of great companies. We also have a bunch of companies in Korea. So I mentioned earlier, we have GS Shop, Musinsa, Olive Young, Tving, Dunamu, like tons and tons of companies in Korea. And Korea is our third largest market. So the US is the biggest, and then the United Kingdom, and then South Korea is the next largest market for Amplitude.
엄청 많이 쓰네요. 근데 왜 이 크고 많은 기업들이 왜 Amplitude 프로그램을 쓰는 건지, 네, 그게 제일 궁금합니다.
So we're really curious why so many of these great and big companies want to use Amplitude. Where do they see the need?
Yeah, so they really want to understand their customers. They don't have any data on what their customers are doing and how they can improve their product. And so a great example is NBC. They wanted to understand how to make a great free trial experience. So they have a streaming subscription service and they want to get more people on the streaming subscription service, but they're not sure about how to do that. And so one of the things they figured out on Amplitude is during the free trial, you should not show ads during the first 3 episodes when you're watching. After you get to 3 episodes, then you can start showing ads to your customers. But if you show ads before that, then a lot of people will leave the free trial. So that was something that they had figured out with the Amplitude data.
그러면 되게 궁금한 게 이렇게 되면은 뭐 약간 쇼핑몰 뭐 이런 쪽에서도 인기 있을 것 같은데 AI로 활용하고 있는 건가요?
In that case, it seems like a lot of online shopping malls will have a high demand for Amplitude.
Yes.
And in that case, is AI something that you really apply to your products?
Yes. One of the biggest challenges with data today is that it's a very manual process to get insight out of. So that insight I just shared with you from NBC, it took a whole team a few weeks to figure that out. But with AI, it can automate and speed that process up tremendously. And so one of the things we're doing is having an AI agent that will automatically look at your data set for you and pull out interesting insights from it. We're actually going to be doing an AI agent release later this year around this product where we come out with a way that these agents can use Amplitude for you. So that they're constantly looking at your data, they're finding issues, surfacing them up, suggesting changes to your product, suggesting a guide or suggesting a new variation of your website. And the idea is you have a whole team of agents that are continually leveraging the data you have in Amplitude and getting value out for you without you having to do anything on your own.
지금보다 미래에 더 매출이 더 빠르게 성장하는 거 아닌가 물어볼 수 있어요? 예.
So you said AI
year.
agents later this year?
Later this year, yes.
Okay. So in that case, that will have the potential to really ramp up your revenues. Is that right?
Yeah, we're actually not focused on monetizing the agents directly. We want to just make sure it creates value for people first, and then they'll naturally use Amplitude more. So, but we're always looking at different ways to accelerate the amount of value we deliver and the revenue of this business, and absolutely that's going to be one.
아무래도 기업을 하다 보면 좀 어려운 일도 있었을 것 같은데 좀 전환점이라든가 이정표가 있었는지 궁금합니다. 예.
So, as you look back over the years of Amplitude, were there any moments what as you would consider as pivotal or really big turning points?
One of the biggest changes was when we realized we had to sell to larger companies. We were very used to working with startups and early stage companies and like very, very small teams where like the founders or the executives would use us directly. And then I remember our very first enterprise customer was actually IBM. And I remember sitting down with them and I asked them what their favorite feature was in Amplitude. And I was very used to getting, I always ask that question when I talk with customers, and I was very used to getting a response like, oh, you know, I like some data or I like this chart that they have. But what they said was that the most important feature in Amplitude was shareable links. And so being able to share a chart or a dashboard with a teammate that they had created. And that was a big wake-up call for me, because that made me realize that a huge part of our value is that you can use Amplitude as a team, and multiple people can use it together. Was the starting point of when we started focusing on larger companies in the enterprise, and it was a shift away from only just working with startups. And so that was a very big deal. That was back in 2017 that happened.
제품 서비스가 어떤 것들이 핵심적인 건지 그게 또 궁금하거든요. 그리고 여러분이 이를 실제로 정의하는 제품, 서비스 이런 거 어떤 게 있는지 궁금합니다. 좀 핵심 제품 서비스 좀 홍보 좀 해주면 좋을 것 같아요.
So, what would you say are Amplitude's core products or services?
Yeah, so our core one is analytics. And that is, we allow you to track data and then ask any question you can think of about the customer journey. And so that's our most important product and the foundation of our platform. In addition to that, we have a lot of other products on top of that core analytics platform that leverage that same data so that they're more effective. So we have experimentation and A/B testing that allows you to run different variations of your website or app. We have guides and surveys, which allows you to guide your users through your product or ask your users questions through a survey. We have session replay, which allows you to view the sessions. So like you can see the screen of your users and see where they run into issues and how they're clicking around or what their mouse movements are. And then we have activation, which allows you to target users so that if you want to send a message to a group of users at the right time, you can with us based on their behavior. And so they all integrate very tightly with analytics because they become, that data makes them a lot more powerful.
그럼 이거를 쓰고 안 쓰고의 매출 차이가 많이 나는 건가요?
So, is there a big difference in the revenue when you compare when these companies are not using Amplitude versus using Amplitude?
Oh yeah, no question. I mean, we've helped companies like double or triple the way their engagement from their end users by using us, which is a big deal. I mean, I'll tell you one other story. There's this meditation app named Calm. I don't know, maybe you know it, but it's the most popular meditation app out there. And they were an early customer of Amplitude in 2018. One of the things they found out by using Amplitude was that they saw a group of users that had very high retention, but were a very small percentage of the population. It was only 2% of their customer base. And what they found was that those users had in common that they wanted to set a daily reminder to meditate at the same time every day. And that was a very big deal. And what they realized was a large part of their application's value was helping you build a habit around meditation, not just walking through the meditation itself. And so they changed the sign-up flow to encourage you to build a habit and set a reminder every day to meditate at the same time. That then tripled their retention, and they grew tremendously to hundreds of millions of users. They became Apple's App of the Year, and they're now the leading app meditation provider out there. And so that was a great, phenomenal success story that we got to play a small role in.
그 아까 한국 시장 코리아 마켓 얘기했었는데 왜 한국에서 이 회사의 이 프로그램을 이렇게 되게 좀 선호하는지 한국 시장에 어떤 특성이 있어서 그런 건지 좀 궁금합니다.
So why do you think there's such a big love for Amplitude in Korea?
I mean, I think we were fortunate to work with AB180, which was a reseller of Amplitudes in Korea who really understood our technology. And so that happened very early on in Amplitude, and they were willing to recommend us, which is fantastic. I mean, since then, though, I think what I've seen is that when I went out to Korea, there was a lot of interest in innovation. And so people there were all about using the most innovative and best products. And so they weren't as worried around like, oh, I have to work with the largest company or the oldest company. It was all about, is your product the most innovative? And I think people responded to that very well. Like every single team, you know, I talked to probably 20 different companies on my trip out there earlier this year, and every single team I talked to, we had very good discussions on how to leverage AI within the business. It was incredibly valuable to spend time with them, and I think there's just a lot of interest in using the best and most innovative product in Korea.
AB180, what is it, a company?
Yeah, they're a company based in Korea that they're a reseller, so they sell Amplitude as well as a number of other products, and so some of our business goes through them.
Oh, okay.
요새 이제 판매가 리셀러가 이제 예전에는 오프라인 매장에서 요새는 온라인 디지털 플랫폼으로 많이 넘어간 상태인데 그러면 그럴수록 이 앰플리튜드가 훨씬 더 많이 필요를 느끼겠네요.
So as the market is really shifting from offline to the online shopping malls and markets, it must be the case that there is a higher demand for Amplitude.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the great things about Amplitude is that we are the core piece of infrastructure that allows you to run your business online. When you're running your business offline, you know, there's a lot you can track on it, but when you put it online, you need infrastructure and data to do that, and that's what we provide. And so the fact that more and more is going online is a fantastic tailwind for us.
저는 이런 회사들의 무서움을 아는 게 그러니까 예를 들어서 이 앰플리튜드를 쓴 기업은 다음번에도 계속 앰플리튜드를 쓰고 있는지.
We're curious about whether the customers who start using Amplitude are they continuing to use Amplitude? Would you say the retention rate is high?
Yes, absolutely. You know, you're running your digital business on what we've built, and so it's fantastic to, you know, we've had customers that have been with us for 10 years now. I was actually just talking with a gaming company that worked with us in the UK for the last 10 years called Hutch Games, and you know, they've been getting insight from Amplitude through a very, very long time in building some of the games that they do. You know, IBM, you know, like I mentioned, our first enterprise customer in 2017, and you know, customer still 8 years later today. So many of our customers have stuck with us over a long time because what we built is essential for running your online business.
그리고 여기 회사 주가가 스탁 프라이스가 1년 만에 60% 올랐는데 비결이 뭔지 좀 궁금합니다.
So Amplitude's stock price has risen over 60% over the past year. What do you think has been driving that growth?
I actually wouldn't look at the stock price too much. It's up some days and down other days. And we're very focused on building a great long-term business. And as we do, that will reflect in a lot of areas in the business, including the stock. I think because we're a smaller public company, there's a lot of volatility. And so there's changes in the macro that can impact us without any changes that we've done. As much as it's good that we're up 60% in the last year, again, like, you know, it just, you know, it's one of these things you only control over the long term.
Right.